Most drivers are burning extra fuel every single day without realizing it. And the worst part is that the fix is already sitting inside the car in front of them. It is not a new part, not a repair, and not some expensive upgrade. It is a small button that people press without understanding what it really does. And that one habit can quietly change how hard your car has to work every time you drive. That button is the recirculation button. And if you have been ignoring it, using it at the wrong time, or never touching it at all, you are probably wasting fuel, making your cabin less comfortable and forcing your climate system to fight harder than it needs to. That means more strain, more noise, slower cooling, slower heating, and more money disappearing from your tank for absolutely no reason. Here is why this matters more than most people think. A car does not waste fuel only because of aggressive driving. It also wastes fuel when its systems are forced to work harder than necessary. When your climate control is constantly pulling in hot outside air, your air conditioning has to keep attacking that heat again and again. And when your system is pulling in cold outside air in winter, your heater has to keep dragging that air back up to a comfortable temperature. Every extra battle your car fights costs energy, and energy means fuel. Now here is the hidden part most drivers never connect. The recirculation button changes the entire game because it stops that endless cycle of fighting outside air. When you press it, your car stops bringing in fresh outside air and starts reusing the air already inside the cabin, which means your climate system is no longer trying to condition a never-ending stream of new air from outside. It is working with air that is already closer to the temperature you want, and that small change allows the system to reach comfort faster and hold it with less effort. This is the first big reason this button saves fuel, because when your climate system is not struggling, your engine does not need to keep supporting that struggle for as long. The less effort the system needs, the less load it places on the vehicle, and the less good means less waste, which is exactly where fuel savings begin to show over time.
Most people think recirculation is only for air conditioning, and that assumption quietly cancels a huge part of its value. This button is not just about comfort, it is about control, and about choosing when your car should work with outside air and when it should protect the cabin from it. On a summer day, when the interior feels like an oven, recirculation helps the system cool the already conditioned air instead of wasting power on extremely hot air from outside, which allows the cabin to drop in temperature much faster. The faster your car cools, the less time the compressor has to work at maximum effort, and that reduced workload is where hidden fuel savings come from, without most drivers even noticing. Now, here is where many people make a mistake that cancels the benefit completely. There is a right time to use recirculation and a wrong time to use it, and understanding this difference is what separates wasted fuel from smart driving. You should use it in traffic when the air outside is dirty or full of exhaust, when you first get into a hot car and want to cool the cabin quickly, and when you are driving through dusty or polluted areas where outside air only makes things worse. In these situations, the button acts like a shield and a shortcut at the same time, protecting your cabin while reducing the effort your system needs to stay comfortable. But if you leave it on all the time, you create a new problem that most drivers do not expect. The cabin air can start to feel stale, moisture can build up, and your windows can fog, especially during longer drives or in wet weather conditions. That is why experienced drivers do not treat recirculation like a permanent setting, but instead use it as a tool with timing. Use it when you need fast results or protection from outside conditions. Then switch back when the cabin reaches a stable and comfortable state, so the air stays fresh and visibility stays clear. That balance is where real efficiency lives.
This becomes even more important in cold weather, where many drivers assume recirculation will always help because it warms the cabin faster. While that is true in the beginning, leaving it on too long traps moisture inside the vehicle, and that moisture eventually collects on the windows, creating fog that reduces visibility and increases risk. So the same feature that can help your car work more efficiently can also create a dangerous situation if used without understanding. That is why knowing when to switch it off is just as important as knowing when to turn it on, and that small decision can completely change how safe and comfortable your drive feels. Here is another layer most people never think about. Fuel waste is rarely caused by one big mistake, but by many small habits repeated every day, and climate control misuse is one of the most common silent contributors.
Leaving your system on fresh air all the time forces your car to constantly fight the outside environment, whether that means heat in summer, cold in winter, or pollution in traffic. Each of those situations adds extra load, and that load slowly turns into higher fuel consumption over weeks and months. You may not notice it on a single trip, but over time it becomes a real cost that could have been avoided with one simple habit. The practical side of this is incredibly simple, and that is what makes it so powerful. The next time you get into a hot car, do not just turn on the air conditioning and wait. Use recirculation immediately so the system works with already cooled air and brings the temperature down faster.
Once the cabin becomes comfortable, adjust as needed to keep the air fresh. The same logic applies in traffic or polluted environments, where recirculation prevents outside air from making your system work harder than necessary. These small actions take seconds, but change how efficiently your car operates every single day. There is also a hidden effect that most drivers never connect to fuel savings, and that is how cabin comfort affects driving behavior. When you are too hot, too cold, or breathing unpleasant air, your focus drops and your reactions become less smooth, which often leads to more aggressive inputs without realizing it. That means harder acceleration, unnecessary braking, and less consistent driving, all of which increase fuel consumption. A stable and comfortable cabin helps you stay calm and controlled, which indirectly supports better driving habits and more efficient fuel use over time. Now think about what this means over the long run. Every time your car cools faster, every time your system works less, every time you avoid pulling in unnecessary outside air, you are reducing waste in a way that adds up quietly. Most people look for dramatic solutions, but real savings often come from understanding the simple systems already built into the car. The recirculation button is one of those systems that feels small but delivers consistent benefits when used correctly. And once you start paying attention to it, you begin to notice how often other drivers ignore it completely. The most important takeaway is that this feature is not hidden because it is secret, but because it is overlooked. It sits in plain sight, yet most people never learn how to use it properly. When you understand it, you stop forcing your car to fight unnecessary battles, and instead, you let it operate more efficiently with less effort. That is how a single button can influence comfort, performance, and fuel use at the same time, turning a simple habit into a daily advantage that costs nothing but attention.
So the next time you start your car and feel that familiar discomfort from heat, cold, or stale air, remember that you already have a tool to fix it instantly. Use the recirculation button with intention, switch it when needed, and let your car work smarter instead of harder. That is how small knowledge turns into real savings. And once you start using it correctly, you will not want to go back to the way you drove before.